All right, welcome back to another video. This one is about stealth changes in the game, adjustments that they make under the radar that at the end of the day they're not transparent about and how they affect everyone. So recently there was a, right after the patch, there was a day pretty much everyone was one-shotting each other, and they hot-fixed it, they made adjustments, and stuff is still wonky. And the problem herein lies that some game modes feel better, but the problem is that we are collectively trying to figure out what the new math is. One of the things collectively we believe very strongly is that defense pierce is now better than ever, to the point where we're not sure if it's working as intended. What if we focus defense pierce and then they change it again without telling us? For some people, this is translated into their characters becoming more powerful than ever, and for other people that have focused on stats that were working a certain way previous to this, now they are effectively gimped. So, Thibs, what is your perspective on this from before and after the most recent hotfix?
It sucks.
Yeah. So before this, you were someone that I would regard as one of the best PvP players in the game. And now, what's PvP like for you right now?
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you. Now, I don't think I could compete in probably the top 100.
Wow. But the way your character was built previous to this, it was based on lots and lots of... You're someone that I know that does an incredible amount of testing, especially in PvP. So you systematically built your character to be very good in PvP by all the testing that you did previous to this, correct?
Yeah. So before, my character was built like an all-rounder. Like, I could survive, I could do decent damage.
Mm-hmm.
But now I can survive, but my damage is almost non-existent. The changes they made to the defense or whatever basically made my character impossible with anyone in the top 50.
Mm-hmm. And it's because of the most people in the top have built up PvP down, right? Is that so you're unable to get through that because you did not build up defense pierce? Is that what you're experiencing?
It's not. The problem isn't PvP down. People had high, like, maximum or cap PvP down at the time before this hotfix, and that was never a problem. I had about 27% defense pierce.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, what it seems like now, is how they're calculating defense and decrease, or the order in which they calculate it.
Okay. So now when a hit happens and the math transpires, the order in which they come to an end result, which is damage, they've moved some things around, and now the calculation for the way your character is built is dramatically less damage, depending on who you're fighting, of course.
Correct.
Okay.
Basically, anyone with 50% or more PvP decrease is impossible to damage without 40 or 50% more defense pierce. Mm-hmm. So if a person has half PvP decrease, you need a minimum of 50% defense pierce to meet the stat check of their defense.
Okay. So on the flip side of this too, so we were having a discussion before we started recording about all of these particulars, and Dirk pointed out that he's experiencing the other side of things, where we were in Omega War earlier, and he was tickled to have killed me 3 times. And Dirk, in your experiences, it's generally much more uncommon to kill me. The problem herein lied where he's excited about that, but doesn't know why it's happening. So Dirk, I'll give you the floor for a second. What do you think is going on right now?
Yeah, that's an accurate summary, and I keep coming back to my original statement of I want to know the intention behind the change that they made, because It feels to me almost like they were trying to compress the gap between free to play, cheap to play, and whales.
Hmm.
Because it seems like most of the people like that are having trouble are on the high end of that scale, right? They're not able to do the build that they've been doing. They're not getting that top tier damage that they're used to.
Hmm.
And having spent thousands upon thousands of dollars in those cases, that's very, very angry.
Yeah.
And from my shoes, I'm cheap to play. I've spent a couple $100 tops, and I have to be very careful with what I choose and what I bring up in order to get a build that works.
Yeah.
And knowing that the math behind the build has changed, it leaves me in a state of like, well, shoot, did I just waste 2 months farming up crit damage when I need to be
Hmm.
farming up defense peers? Um, it's a very, very sad state to be in. And a lot of people, from what I'm seeing, are like, well, do I pivot and adjust or do I quit? And
Right. Well, I
causing
mean,
people to want to quit the game over a change they don't understand is not a healthy state for the game to be
no,
in. And
they're. Yep.
while it's
Go.
working out better for me, there's probably far more people who it's not working out better for.
Yeah, agreed. Cookies mentioned something before we started recording, and that's you mentioned the gap between free to play and whales being shortened, but also Cookies brought up some of the economical values that come with these adjustments that actually can hurt not only whales but the free to play that are on the opposite side of this. So let's say someone spent their hard-earned time in this consideration. We're talking about free to play, so it's time. And let's say that they worked on a particular stat. Let's say they were building crit damage, for instance, and they were very particular with their resources. So one of these examples is to get defense pierce on, let's say, badges, for instance. You use green cores. What else do you use green cores for? Which is crit damage. So let's say this is just one example. There's it could be cards, it could be something else, it could be your gear. But let's say you were purposely chasing crit damage and you forwent defense pierce and you're free to play. And now let's say your defense pierce is something like 10% or 15%, and you're 300%. Let's say you min-maxed, you did your best, and you really knocked it out of the park, and you got your crit damage up very high. How do those people feel right now as well? It's kind of the same for everyone. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have people that have spent large amounts of money, and they feel a little betrayed because they went specifically after certain. The same in the same example for the free to play, they went after particular stats because the math worked a certain way, and now for no reason that we're aware, we're still, all of us have been testing this stuff all day to try to figure this all out. Cookies, you had some astoundingly prolific perceptions of how you feel all of this is. Can you take the floor for a second?
Yeah, we've kind of focused a little bit at the start of this video talking about defense pierce specifically, and did it get a shadow buff? Did other things get a shadow nerf? And to this point, we have a sufficient amount of just evidence because a lot of us sit in Omega War or DDQ all day, and so the change after the Wednesday patches is so obvious to so many of us that we're very, very confident that something changed. However, Netmarble has not acknowledged that they've changed anything, and to me, what this does is it completely erodes consumer confidence. But that can apply to people that spend money or just people that invest a lot of time in the game. In either capacity. And hey, someone like me or other people on this call that actually invest a lot of time and money in the game, that's just a double whammy. But basically, whenever you choose to invest either your time or your money into something, there's kind of an expectation of what it is that you're getting in return. And when a change is implemented with no acknowledgement, we don't know if the current state of the game as of, October 4th, we don't know if this is what the intended state of the game is with how different stats interact within the game. It's possible that they could have a a little maintenance patch on Wednesday, and it changes things again. We just don't know. But what it does is, it erodes. I would say it has to erode, everyone's confidence. If you invested a bunch of money in special cards or just Omega cards in general, and you didn't pay a ton of attention to defense peers, are you supposed to now say, okay, well, I should really spend some more money and roll for some defense peer specific stats on my
Yeah.
cards? How do you know if that's going to have value a day from now or a week from now? If you're a free to play player, frankly, or a cheap to play player, I feel like it actually impacts you even more, because whereas, frankly, someone like me or anyone who's not against spending can just sit there and open a couple 10 pulls of cards and kind of change things up to keep chasing the meta, staying on top of the meta. If you don't spend very much, or if you're free to play, then you could have just spent the last 2 or 3 months, if you started in soft launch, building a certain build, and now you have a strong devaluation on that investment of time and energy that you made, and you're not even sure if this is intended, or maybe it's partially intended. Maybe they scale it back and it's still stronger defense pierce, that is stronger than it has historically been, but maybe it's not as strong as it is now. And if that ends up being the case, is it worth pivoting? We just don't know. And so, whether you spend or whether you don't spend, I think just in general, if you play this game and you at least exert the amount of effort to kind of be in the know, how do certain stats interact with each other? How do things work? What can I do to improve my build with my play style? Even if you do just that, I think you look at, a change that's not publicly acknowledged, and you just say, what am I doing? Did I just waste all my time? Did I just waste a bunch of money?
Yeah.
And we just don't know. And I think, to me, if Netmarble wants me to continue to transact with them and with this game, again, either time or money or both, I need to have the confidence that when I make that investment, I know what I'm getting in return, or at least I have a pretty good idea of what I'm getting in return. And I don't think anybody right now can do that, just because Netmarble has been, so wishy-washy. And don't even get me started on the back and forth on the Omega tokens that they did between Wednesday and Friday morning, because that had a major negative impact on me, and frankly has not only cut off my desire to spend money on the game, but I don't even really feel like playing the game for the most part since Wednesday.
And you're not
Friday.
alone in that either. There are several people that we know on the high in your position that echo your feelings. And here's the other problem too: is because they weren't transparent. Is it that the previous math was not working as intended, and now it is working as intended, or will they just revert it again after we make these changes from player feedback? Let's say we're up in arms about this, and then they just change it back, but people have adjusted at this point. We've had a shift, and the fact that they've never shared any of this information with us is where it leaves us with our hand.
The matter is, the solution is not leaving things the way they are or changing things back necessarily. What they should do is give players an avenue to readjust their gear and not a ridiculous one. Now, getting one piece of 6-star to re-roll your stats or one piece of gear is impossibly hard as a free-to-play. You have to spend money in this game, and that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, here's another thing that you said previous to this. You are actually not against the changes. You're just against the fact that they've made the changes and not given you the tools to make the adjustments from the financial investment that you already made previous to this to rectify these changes. So you're kind of left in this position where either you just give up, or you give in, or you just say, this just is how it is now. Or you spend more money. That's your only choice at this point. And I got to tell you, it's kind of wild to see you in this position, based on the fact that you're someone that is incredibly passionate about the math that goes on behind the scenes, and to see you in a situation where you say you're struggling with the top 100 now, when you were probably a top 3 PvP player in the game before this. That's just like such an extreme that I don't even know how you're feeling right now, given that you're so passionate about the game mode.
Well, I'm feeling all sorts of messed up, but there's nothing I can really do about it other than cry. So.
Yeah, that's tough, man. I empathize with you, and oof. So,
if I can just say one more thing.
Yeah, definitely.
People have asked, hey, they asked as of today. They said, hey, do you think I should, open up some more cards and try to lean into defense Pierce? And we had some people on over the weekend just in voice chat, because that's a public channel, asking about the game. And basically, what I've told everybody is right now, I personally would not recommend spending money. I would feel bad telling someone to spend money on a meta that could be changing. We have no idea. And I've even told people, if you haven't started playing yet, don't really start playing now, because I feel like everyone, for the most part, is investing some combination of time and money. And all Netmarble is doing, frankly, is just kind of, waving in the wind, trying to figure out what to do. And then if the backlash gets strong enough, they just arbitrarily revert a decision that they might have made 2 or 3 days prior. I don't think that there's anything wrong with actually changing how things work. I think it's great that more stats might actually have value in the game. And I definitely think, with regards to, buffing characters or things like that, I think that's, great. I think everyone should have a viable character based on who you enjoy playing. But the lack of acknowledgement, and frankly, the lack of direction that Netmarble seems to operate within, it just feels like they're doing things and just throwing it out into production and kind of seeing how people react, as opposed to like testing things or gathering feedback beforehand or thinking things through. And it really just makes us feel like guinea pigs. A lot of us, especially in Omega Flight, right? We played in soft launch. That should have been the opportunity to, hash out a lot of this stuff. So, for them to just kind of make so many haphazard changes, I just don't feel like it would feel good for anybody.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
I'm projecting, of course, but I just don't think it. It feels great when things are changing. People don't know what's changing, why it's changing. Is it going to change back? It's tough to tell anyone to spend any amount of time playing the game, because what we're doing right now could feel completely different tomorrow or next week.
Yeah, I agree.
It feels like investing in the stock market instead of investing in a game that's supposed to be stable.
Yeah.
Well, even worse too, and I was going to add this to Cookie's point, is that you have to spend money really to test these things too. It's not even just I'm spending money to try to chase the best stats from a min-max perspective. It's okay, how do the mechanics of this game even work anymore? Like, the only way to test that out is to make major changes, and the only way to make major changes quickly is to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, well, me personally,
take me a month.
Yeah, I'm definitely so here's this. I've got what I feel like are very, very great rolls on my Omega cards, and previous to this, I thought I had a God roll helm, for instance. That's where a lot of us get defense Pierce. I think I have 1 stack on there. I have a bunch of crit damage. And now I'm kind of looking at all of my... I'm definitely afraid to reroll any card. Just because they were dialed in. If they make a change and then I get myself again... Well, just to reroll a card is incredibly expensive once it's 6-starred, and especially a special. And then on top of it, now I'm kind of... I have a nanoed helm that I'm unsure... if it's really any good anymore, considering that there's defense Pierce is weighted so heavily right now, and I only have 1 stack. I'm at 30%, as you can see here, with my stats pulled up, And man, if I had this insight previous to this, I would have done things quite a bit differently. Obviously, I would have spent my resources and money, time, everything much differently. But and now I'm left in a position where do I go from here? I don't want to re-roll cards. I don't want to touch anything because of the journey it took to get here was very precise. And now I'm left kind of like feels bad, man. You know, I don't really know what to do from here. I'm just kind of rolling with it. And then also, like Cookie said, this could change tomorrow. This could all be mute. This could not matter.
Well, it's funny that you bring up re-rolling cards, because I think some of us have done the math, and it's 6 to the power of 6 for a free-to-play player, crunching down 1-star cards for 1 red star card, and that amounts to something like 46,000 cards.
That's crazy.
200 and something, if I'm not mistaken. But
what was it, Dirk?
it's like 7396 or something like that. It's
Yeah, 6 to the power of 5. Baka argued with me on this. He says it's 6 to the power of 6, but
the first level doesn't count, so it's 6 to the power of 5.
Yeah.
I think the point is,
it's still a dumb number.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
impossible.
it takes over 7,000 1-star card to make a single 6-star card.
It's like almost 8,000.
Yeah, it's somewhere.
yeah, that's 6 to the power of 5.
It's like
Yeah.
It's an
7,700 something.
It's an insane amount of grinding. I think I did the math once, and it's like a month to a month and a half to get one card from 1 to 6-star.
No, it's not a month. It's like a year. It's well
It's
over
like
a
a year.
year.
It's under a year.
Because you only get about 19 cards a day.
Oof. It's still a month, a year. It's a lot for. I mean, if you invested into this specific card, like using the crit damage analogy, and you were to get to that point, and then they changed it. Oh man, I mean, I'd be upset if it was a week.
Well, I mean, not even just that. Let's just say people are pulling. How about some step up banners?
Yeah.
People could pull infinitely and never get the full set.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of ridiculous. The fact that the math comes out to $10,000 to get, the top tier sets like Rise of the East, the Eyes of Osiris, or Steampunk.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I mean,
a little insane.
I'm not at all. I mean, we kind of should all know what we get into when we get into this kind of a game, right? It's going to be a grindy game. It's going to have a lot of RNG. It's oftentimes not going to go in our favor.
Is more
But-
egregious than any other game. Like this.
Right. I was going to say, big caveat though. I think that before this patch, there was already a kind of disheartened sentiment amongst most of the community that the economy was a bit too restrictive. It took too long to acquire certain things. The cost of getting things to a usable state, it was already too high. And so once again, when you make changes like these, you just take what's already an issue that most of the community is complaining about, and you just exacerbate it because you've literally you've taken an economy where it's incredibly hard to acquire things at a usable state, and now you're going to keep moving the goalposts as far as defining what is usable and how do certain things work. So I think again we should be realistic and know that there's going to be some of that to an extent in this kind of a game. But I feel like a lot of people, and even people that have spent a lot of money, who frankly have the resources to deal with this more so than most players, if it's really kind of pinching the higher tier of the spenders, I think that Netmarble needs to take a look at that and reassess sort of the resource economy that, frankly, they've created, right? This is all an artificially created economy. Nothing here is a limited resource of which there are a finite amount in the world, right? This is all just digital made-up stuff. I think Netmarble seriously needs to take a look at that, especially if they are going to be moving the goalposts like they thus far have. Nobody's going to keep playing a game if it feels bad more often than it feels good. And I think a lot of what's going on right now just kind of feels bad more often than it feels good.
Yeah. So love that we got to have this discussion, and I feel like these are all very strong viewpoints from the people that have benefited from this and have not, and how it makes kind of all of us feel in the current state of the game right now. And maybe if our voices come together on this subject, maybe it will result in something that can alleviate some of this this feeling we're having about the lack of transparency, and then B, what we do once we know that there's an adjustment that's made and we have to adapt to it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Has this patch affected you in a positive or negative way? And if you are free to play, light spender, if you're a dolphin, a whale, whatever that may be, and because I think that gives context to your perspective. So thank you guys for hanging out with us today. We're going to continue to do more and more testing to give you guys this this new math and how it plays out. And stay tuned for some of that. We're going to have a lot more Dimension Duel live testing. Well, it's not going to be live. It's going to be pre-recorded. But we have some intent to do Dimension Duel battles with testing involved, different skill loadouts with all the different classes from some of the most meta players in the game. And stay tuned for that. We love getting this information to you guys and seeing what you guys can do with it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.